Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Deployed Engineer channel. Today, I am glad to have Ganesh Krishnan on the podcast. Ganesh is a really good friend, and I met him at a conference, and I learn a lot from him. We always keep in touch. And Ganesh here was previously a petroleum engineer who found his love for AI, and he's got a master's in AI, and currently he's a data engineer. He always keeps up with the AI space. I'm always learning new things from him. And he's also an entrepreneur. He ran previously a wine and grocery shop for a number of years. So he's got that entrepreneurial acumen. So he's lived several lives in one. So he has a unique perspective on various things. So yeah, Ganesh, is there anything else you want to add on that?
Man, you said enough. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Bollock. I'm honored to be a part of this podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Awesome. So let's get started. I've not met anyone who is pivoted from petroleum engineering to AI and or technology and software. What sparked your interest, or why you were always a person that was like tinkering with these things?
So, I mean, I think there's only one thing that pivoted it, and that was COVID.
Okay.
Basically, I was very deep into oil and gas for close to a decade plus, and I was a reservoir engineer, and basically, if you could call a reservoir engineer anything, it's kind of like a high-end accountant, but also with a science background. And petroleum engineering is one of those types of engineering where you can't see the system in place, right? You're using tools that go deep underground, and you're trying to characterize the nature of the reservoir and how it is and how much oil you can extract and stuff like that. So a lot of it was using tools to help you visualize stuff, right? So and it's a lot of geology, a lot of using maps, geospatial stuff, right? And I think in some ways that kind of translated across into AI. But COVID happened, oil prices went negative and basically rendered my position as useless. So I was like, okay, what do I do? I'm scratching my head. I'm like, it's pandemic. I'm bored. I basically ripped my house down to bare bones. After 6 months, I went crazy in the house. And I was like, okay, what do I do with the rest of my life? So, and then I'm like, okay, let's go back to school, I guess, and I was kind of squirmish about it too. Like, oh man, I don't know if I want to go back to school. 38 or yeah, I was like, what? I was 38 years old. Yeah, I was 38 years old. I was like, okay, let's go. And at the same time, the world was slowly opening up and people were getting vaccinated and stuff like that, right? So I started going to community college again, and just like learning the basics. Took an intro to data science, and then I basically went to school in 2022 and started learning more about AI, how to use it. I didn't know anything. I'm coming from very, very like tangent. It's a complete 180 from what tech is, right? So I had to learn a lot of this from scratch and stuff like that. And then, the program was great. I went to University of San Diego, and it was really nice. It's a good Catholic school, and they were one of the first institutions that was giving like a master's in artificial intelligence out there. And I still like keep in touch with some of the folks that I'm there, but it was really good. But then what really changed everything was when ChatGPT came out in November 2022. And the minute I realized that, it's like, oh, wow, this has changed everything. This changed my whole overall outlook. I mean, because everything that see, I'm not 22, right? So I'm like 38, 39 at that point, and I'm just realizing, wow, this is something that's going to change the world. And I instantly recognized the impact it's going to have, and I started using it to the fullest, and I mean the fullest. So I was trying just to see like what else can you do, and I thought I started seeing how well it was doing with boilerplate code, right?
Mm.
I was like, whoa, this is very interesting. So I started experimenting and it basically vibing when before vibing ever became a term, right?
Yeah.
A large, I started exploring how, like at home, I started doing like some small data engineering projects and started vibing like some Python scripts to extract information and just create an ETL pipeline into a data warehouse, right? So I was like, oh man, and then so I didn't understand context rot. I didn't understand all the stuff that could accumulate, right? And those earlier models, you can definitely accrue a lot of context rot because you're having a continuing conversation and the context window is so finite, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think it clicked in terms of how to write and all that, right? So prompt engineering started becoming big and all that stuff, right? So I was just like learning a lot of that stuff is everybody's still learning to a degree, you know? So, but like right now, the level that I'm at right now, had I not had uh, a large language model to help me, my learning curve would still be very slow. I wouldn't have that hockey stick curve. In fact, my hockey stick curve started going up a lot sooner because I was using these tools. Thankfully, I did do a little bit of coding outside pre LLM that I knew how to create the scope, define the parameters that I want, and be explicit in terms of what I needed to get the deterministic output that I need. In that way, it's been very helpful. Now I still have to learn a lot. I'm nowhere near a 100x coder by any means. What with the advent of having a Claude or a Gemini on your side, man, it has 10x me. I
Wow.
can say for sure.
That's interesting. So it's kind of cool how like you switched at what people typically think is a lot later into a field. Like how do you like I really love how humble you are about like learning new things. What's your mindset? Because there's a lot of sunk cost, fallacy, but you are always open to learning. Like what's your philosophy?
So that's a very good point, Balak. At that point, I have to realize that I don't know everything. I have to realize like I have to show eagerness to adapt. Right? There was a side of me, I'll tell you this. In the pandemic, I struggled with identity of who I am. I was struggling with, I'm a petroleum engineer. I'm a petroleum engineer. I'm a petroleum engineer. That was what was going on in my head. Like I would eventually go back into oil and gas, right? I was struggling with that identity. I was struggling to adapt into this new phase of thinking. But the more and more I got in and the more and more I was doing work, through that uncomfort, right? I started getting into this level of comfort, right? So I'm not saying every day is like easy, but I'm saying there are days that are hard and then there are days that are like you're on cloud nine, right? But knowing when to say I need help, knowing when to say that I don't know everything and getting the help that you need is huge. So I learned to like say that sometimes you don't need to be stuck into this frame of thinking that you're this and you'll have many identities across your life. You could be a construction worker, you could work at Starbucks, you could work at you could have your own company, you could be a dev, so I realized like it's not just one thing, it's going to be many.
Wow, that's a good perspective that no one knows everything, right? So you always have something to learn from, and you're an entrepreneur previously. Like there are like things that you learned that still date you hold dear in terms of the lessons you learned and how to deal with
One thing
people.
I learned, yeah, great question. I think one thing I learned in that when I did my entrepreneurial venture was I can't do everything by myself. I'm learning now you can start doing things by yourself. Like
Yeah.
it's the advent of agents and all that stuff. I wish I had half these things 13 years ago, right? I wish humanoids were available 13 years ago. I'm sure they were still like in the infancy stage and all that, right? But one thing I learned is like learn to ask for help. I tend to take stress, I tend to take the stress on to myself, but For me, it's just kinda like, if I learned anything from that venture, it's like, hey, it's okay to fail too. It's okay to fail. That's a huge thing. And, I think that it took me a couple of years to learn that because my whole conditioning is never be don't fail, don't fail, don't fail. But in tech, failing is a good thing. It's a good thing. You learn and then you move on fast, right?
Yeah.
And hence the term fail fast, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't occur to me that, like, failing is a good thing. I never equated to that. So, if there's one thing I learned from the entrepreneur ventures, hey, it's okay to fail, and failure is a good thing. It's okay. Cool. It took me a year or 2 to understand that. A year or 2 of self-reflection to really understand that. I actually learned a lot. And, and that's good. It's okay to fail.
Wow. Um, I wanted to understand, like when we talk about failure, right? Failure happens sometimes not as one event. Sometimes it happens over time. What's your framework from your lessons on when to just stop there and move on to something new? When it
When you're
comes to
obsessed about something, when you're
okay,
really obsessed. Yeah. When you feel like you're giving so much energy into that, right? That it's taking away from you, that's when you need to learn to step away from that, right? I'm still learning it. Like, there's sometimes, like, just this a weekend ago, I'm building like this half wall around my second floor, and long story short, I just couldn't get this one nail, like, bolted in properly because I drilled a little too deep. I used a 3/8 a Ryobi driller and drilled a little too deep, and the bolt that I have isn't, like, tightening. I just got a
okay,
little upset with it. I'm like, "No, I can't." And, so I'm just like, "Oh god, I don't wanna do this again." That's the other thing. I don't want to do something over again, like, because I just, like, dread having to do something over and over and over, right? But I also understand that through doing repetition, you gain mastery as well too, right? But there's
yeah.
some dread too, and that's just conditioning. I'm learned to accept that. But, am I human? Yes. And do I get frustrated? Absolutely. Oh my God. All the day, all the time, man.
That's interesting. I actually like this is true. When I was taking my first year computer science classes, I noticed that the guys that retook and redid things even despite failing, like they're the ones that like actually did so well later because people just thought that you're naturally good at stuff. Some people just think that you're either born doing this or you don't have it. But what I learned is like that everything's just repetitions and then like just not remorsing over the failure or maybe remorse over it and then just be like, okay, I learned my lesson, let's start again and like just
Yeah, exactly. I think you give yourself grace in those moments where you do fail, and you learn from yourself. Like, I failed physics, and I took it again and I did really good, because I understood it that much better in that second time. Right? And the more I learn, like, oh my God, the more I've done, the more failures that happen in my life, the faster I get back up. It's just really funny if you think about it, right? It's just like, I think failure is just a way to humble yourself. And I've just been around a lot of failure modes to say, hey, bounce back up. It's not the end of the world if you fail. You can get back up immediately.
That's good. That's good. So, about it's coming back to like segueing into maybe let's say what you're currently doing. What's your like how do you build things right now? Do you have specific AI workflows
So
or this? Yeah.
it's funny. I'll be honest with you. It's kind of chaotic, but through that chaos, there's some beauty in the chaos. I'm gonna tell you. I can't be like the things. I'm just looking at social media. I'm like, what are they using this for? What are you using? Just go. I'm just curious. Half the time, I'm just curious. Oh, let's just try this. Let's just try that. Right? Like, actually, I learned from you when we first met, like, to use Cursor. I'm like, "Cursor? Okay, let me go check that out." And I started doing the tinkering with that stuff, and we were talking about VAPI and all that, and I got into voice AI, right? And that got us meeting again for the VAPI conference, right? And
Right.
I was just like, "Wow, this is real. This stuff is like, it's about to take off. Oh my god." I didn't realize as I go to these conferences, that's when my eyes start opening. I'm like, the world is changing before us. My God. My whole world was limited to oil and gas. And that too, it was my future was seen in 5 different cities: Houston, Dallas, Midland, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, 6, Denver, 6 cities. I thought that's all my life is going to be around, because that's where I went to school. That's what I'm doing and all this stuff. Right now, I could see myself anywhere, working anywhere. And that's just opened up my mind. And I'm like, oh my God. And I struggle with this, and my wife saw me struggle quite a bit with this identity. And now I'm just kind of coming to peace with, okay, now I'm no longer oil and gas. But what I've been doing, I've been utilizing Cursor, and lately I embedded Claude Code in Cursor. Just like about a month or two ago, I started doing that, started including skills and stuff like that. And I'm kind of working on this side project where I'm making a multimodal app. It's just kind of like, that just does like focus groups for opinion research or consumer research.
Mm.
And yeah, I basically, we're just taking like a discussion guide of questions and getting the voice agent to ask those questions and doing a roundtable format. And then on top of that, you got to introduce some rules like, hey, can't speak beyond 30 seconds. Otherwise, we're going to give you like 10 to 15 seconds to wrap it up. You got to do roundtable, right? If somebody goes off topic, you need the LLM to say, I'm sorry, you're off topic. Could you answer the question again? So, and then I embedded an avatar, a real lifelike avatar on top of the voice agent.
Mhm.
Oh man, it was like the product much more robust. And then, on top of that, just like, so the tools that I used was Claude Code and Cursor. And then I just built out just this, the back end where I had my server and my basic authentication, all this stuff. And then I basically, after the session gets over with, I generate a little summary report of top takeaways, key findings, quotes, raw transcript. And just this week, I was able to say, like, oh my God, I just built out a full demo, dare I even say MVP level thing. But I think I burnt a lot of tokens. I could have done it a lot better efficiently, and I think that's a conversation I need to go through with myself and just like, okay, how can I better understand the technical debt that I accrued? How can I better build a better system design to make sure that I modularize the code, and more importantly, that it's scalable too as I add additional features. So those are the things that I'm kind of going through right now. Initially, it was just kind of like fire away at Claude Code and Cursor and like get it to fix. And then I start hearing from you guys like, oh, if you have bug issues, go into plan mode. Okay. And then walk through the steps like, hey, this is the bug that I'm seeing. This is where I think the logic is kind of busted in the code. Try to like do it. And then also like utilize other tools out there in the marketplace. Like I used a software architecture GPT
Mm.
to help me like visualize the code a little bit better, and that helped, and that cleared a ton of my bugs overnight. Oh man, that just changed the whole trajectory of like how things are going. But I definitely think as a intermediate, if you would call me that, is just like I am burning through tokens, and that's a little worrisome. And like if I want to scale this product, I don't want to burn through a lot of tokens, and I don't want to. I want to use it efficiently too.
Yeah, I think you can try open source models. They're getting good. You can burn. I think there's a lot of hype in Silicon Valley right now where people believe that the more tokens you burn, the more experiments you're running, the more the more robust your product. It's debatable, but I think that throwing more tokens sometimes can allow you to do like try like five different things and try to fix some things you have. And so you could definitely try using like GLM 5.1 or Kimi
See, yeah,
2.5. Yeah.
I've been playing that's funny, I've been playing with GLM 5.1, it was pretty
Okay.
cool. I haven't used Codex. I still am a little, like, throwing question marks because, like, everybody was, like, everybody in Twitter is going crazy about Claude Code, right? And I'm like, "Guys, I have Cursor, I have access to Opus 4.6. What's the difference? Why can't I just use Cursor?" And I'm like, "Okay, you know what? I'm gonna embed Claude Code in my Cursor. Then, like, I can go through the diffs and just understand the stuff, right?" In that way, I was just using, Claude Code. In fact, I should be doing that in my VS Code. That's a different story. I'm kind of double dipped here. But yeah, I want to use Codex. I definitely want to use Kimi. I've heard a lot about Kimi. Kimi just released out their version 2.6. And if you ever get a chance, you should follow this one guy on Instagram if you're on Instagram. His name is GigaChen.
Okay.
It's this American dude. It's American dude, and basically he lives in China and he's investigating all the Chinese AI that's happening. And
Okay.
I I'm telling you, the Chinese AI is I think they're ahead. They're not they're I'm sure if you were to compare US and China, like they're probably neck and neck, but I think China has the edge. I think China has the edge right now. So, in that regard, I just feel like, um, they're, like Giga Chen was talking about this time series model called Chronos. And it is one of those, it's a zero shot time series forecast. And I did a paper trade of like $10,000 of Nvidia stock. Obviously, it's paper trade, not not real dollars, right? And I did it for the most volatile period of this year, basically when US struck Iran, like in late February till April. It made me $100 in paper trade. I was like,
That's
"Oh,
wild.
that's pretty good." That's what I mean, that's not bad for the most downtrending part of the market, all right? So, and I thought it was and basically it capped it at like if the prices went 1.5% below market price, it would like trigger a sell off. If it went above 1.5% market price, it would trigger a sell off there. So it was just trying to like tabulate. And yeah, but based off that volatile period, it actually did a very good job.
Wow, that's crazy. It's called Kronos?
Chronos, yeah. So this guy his name is Coder. I can give the link. I'll put it in the chat here. Just give me a second.
Okay.
Google.
The
Yeah,
foundation
play
model
around.
for wow.
Yeah, it's this guy has apparently a lot of people are using it right now.
Mhm.
But, again, I don't know how well, I don't know how much Wall Street firms are like using it and stuff. Chronos just sent the GitHub link right now.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll check it out. That's interesting. I think I like now looking at stuff that's kind of different from like just large language models, just other similar adjacent things that are happening like this one. So definitely something I'll
No,
give it
I
a
mean,
shot and
time series forecasting is something that I've done, like again in my previous line of work and now. So it's something that I'm used to.
okay.
So that's something that I'm like have more of affinity to.
Okay.
So, like I do time series forecasting at work, at my current line of work and
Okay.
my previous line of work. And so that was an easy transition for me to do.
Okay.
But seeing some of the things that are out there, like Meta's time series forecast profit, there's Arima, there's LSTM, all that stuff, right? Those things kind of make sense to me, but Chronos was like man, this is kinda interesting. Very interesting.
Nice. Yeah, something that's when you're building these projects and you're even at work and even your personal projects, what's your ratio of like reading or writing code or like writing code to versus reading slash reviewing code line by line versus using AI to write it? What's the percentage breakdown?
I'm gonna be honest with you. It's, utilizing AI to write the code is probably about 60, 70%. And then I would, like 10, 20% of the time I'm reviewing the code or actually I'm more so reviewing the plan.md that they're generating from Claude. So I'm just and tightening up the prompt the markdown file, if you would call it.
Hmm.
So that parameters are so that, it's more robust. So
Yeah.
I'm more looking at what it's going through, right? How it's going through, and then also trying to minimize the amount of changes it does to the overall logic. So yeah, but line by line, I probably, like in cursor, I'd be going line by line and just kind of like click, 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 click. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. I'm just doing quick reviews, nothing like very deep. Now I will go back and ask, hey, Claude or hey, GPT 5.4, why did you use this logic? And, like walk me through why you thought this, So I would take time to like understand how it wrote the code and try to implement it in later parts of life. But if I think there's some issue with the code, I would bring it up.
Mm,
If I did see a marketable difference from one version to the other, I would bring it up. I would highlight it. I would try to record it. I would try to like, basically, if I recorded in video, I'd use Gemini to like walk through exactly the type of bug that I'm seeing because I'm doing more multimodal apps, right? So
right.
you got to like experiment on, do the demo for yourself and see, oh, hey, this is not working. Hey, this is not working. So those little bugs, I try to like work through. So I don't do a hell of a lot of line by line.
Okay.
I'm going to be honest. I basically build if I can build out that markdown file the way I need to, and then make it more tight and robust, and like limit the scope that it's doing for a segment feature or whatever. Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. Do you, there's one interesting thing I'm asking everyone, which is what's your prediction on software development in general in 5 years? You got to make a wild guess.
So we've been having this discussion between ourselves, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I feel like I go back and forth because I'm not from a tech background. I don't have software engineering background. So and
right,
I've very specifically told you this that I feel like there are holes in the gap that I think I could be better at if I go to a if I do a master's in software engineering. At times you have kind of held me back and said don't just take XYZ course and learn it, right? And which I've, whenever I get a chance, I go through Medium articles and watch through YouTube tutorials and stuff like that to help me like advance my knowledge. I really think that we're democratizing code right
mm,
now. We are democratizing code. We're democratizing writing the logic and all that. It boils down to how are you developing the system?
right,
How are you developing the system? Can you, tell me in 10,000-foot view what your system should be? Hey, I need my backend staged in a virtual private server. And that virtual private server needs to be hooked onto my front end Wix or whatever GoDaddy domain name. And, like from there, I need, like basic auth privileges, all that stuff. Like these things you don't need to write. Nowadays, even in the past, it's not about writing the code, it's about building the system. You can always get the code from somewhere, some GitHub portfolio or whatever.
right.
Not the end of the world. So I think this is going to be more of a system design game. It's less about writing the actual code itself. Yeah, Would there be AI slop? Absolutely. I think I'm gonna be guilty of writing AI slop, I'm gonna be honest because of my given background. But I'm obviously going to try to take a pause and utilize a software engineer and stuff like that to help me do best practices and stuff like that, right? But I genuinely think that software engineers may have to pivot to more of this 10,000-foot view. They have to be of more of a product manager than the
Right.
actual, and I think that's what's happening right now. It's like, I have friends in different parts of the industry that saying the product managers are writing code now. And I even have a cousin in Google saying that the product managers are writing code. And they think it's like yeah, Cursor Cursor Claude Code has made learning the syntax easier, okay? But it doesn't necessarily help you think through the system design process of it. And that's where people like you and me or my cousins or whoever, are needed to help it think through the problem in its entirety.
Interesting. So, what do you think is lacking between that point where it's like fully automated? And I know the models are getting better, but I think everyone is noticing some gaps. So, just in your circle and you personally having discussions with people, what do you think are the gaps? And as far as adaptability goes, yeah, I think all of us are adapting because we are all writing in some way some slop because if you like it's almost like the only difference is between a senior and a person who's like not who's still writing, right? Who's just learning is I think the ability to notice the slop because there's slops gonna be generated, right?
Yeah,
Anyways, so,
I agree. So going back to what my cousins wrote, and I'm going to also quote somebody that I know in AWS as well too. Apparently, so what my cousins and I were talking about, obviously product managers writing code and all that, right? And my cousin said, unless you're AWS, no one's going to ship Claude output directly to prod. That's what he said, literally. And I quote, all right, Claude is just easing your learning syntax burden, like I just said before, which is true,
okay.
which is
Yeah.
true. So, and it is well noted that AWS is pushing not Claude output, but their internal LLM output to prod. Okay. So I do have this AWS friend. He's basically saying Claude or any generative AI is as good as the input and controls you put in place. We built like as long as your code is high quality, like if you create the guardrails, right? You
Right.
can create a secure and perform app, right? So, like this guy was saying, like about 90% of the code right now that's being generated in his organization is AI generated. Right now, I'm saying about 70 to 80% is mine. Okay. Right now, I'm just saying. Right. So you can imagine other organizations are using this. We they put AI, they put in place robust quality controls and evals to ensure integrity, reliability, and security of the system. So you still need to curate the controls, modify some of the workflows, and create new agents. But toolkits help with those steps as well too. So every mature organization with the right guardrails is shipping product right now, using AI tools to production. There will be issues. That's a given. That's a fact,
Yeah. Yeah.
and those issues are getting addressed and people are moving forward. So that's huge. So those organizations will see more successes than the ones not doing. So like if Anthropic is releasing 5 features a day and 2 to 3 new products a week, I mean, we have to ask ourselves a question like, are we going to be the blocker in this, or are we going to utilize this technology to like lean forward and,
Yeah.
I can definitely see once I introduce this with, introduced LMs in my workflow, I have 10x. I've also within the current line of work I'm working in financial services, I've reduced the number of hours that people need to do monotonous stuff. Monotonous stuff. Like in the effect of like hundreds of hours of
Wow.
monotonous work. Just imagine there's one project. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but just like we had to send letters to our members I'm in the financial services. Obviously, if you're doing the old way, it's John Smith, address 123 Main Street, and then you put this little block of letter, hey, you have to change something in your account, do it, right?
Right.
I basically utilize a Python script to automate that, right? I get a new list every week. I basically built out a linear workflow that I initially the information that I get needs to be cleaned. And then I have to validate across several iterations whether they're duplicates, and then inform in an email whether like it's a linear workflow, and then basically run a list of people, their names, their addresses, and then pump it into a Python script. And
Wow.
with
Okay.
that, I've saved several hours. And it would require like a high school student typing all day just to do that. If you speed it up, it'll probably be like 3 to 5 minutes. But if you have to write 5,000 letters, that's somebody's entire thing. It's the most boring work. You shouldn't do that.
That's true.
Now,
So it's basically, yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, I was like, so it's basically like aggregating data from different points and then like formatting it using the script. Then you're using like, you just basically wrote a script using AI to help you just
Yeah,
speed that up.
that
Wow.
speed that
Okay.
up. That's it. I mean, there's like that isn't. I mean, it's just automation. That's not
Just
AI.
automation. That's not AI. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Which is good. Yeah.
People
Yeah.
start mixing AI and automation together,
Yeah.
and they don't understand, like, a lot of the stuff that they're asking for is just, "Let me automate this." They're saying, "Help me use AI to do this." Like, AI, it's good, yeah, but a large part of people's work is just like, "I need automation." And now you're, with Copilot Studio, with Claude, Dispatch, and all that stuff, you can control your computer to do certain things, you
Yeah.
know? Like, in financial services, it is ridiculous. Like, people are literally, to find certain information, they have to go into a certain software and they have to fat finger in a number, right? And just imagine doing that 100, if not 1,000 times. How much time are you wasting, dude? You are wasting a lot of time.
Right. Have you
So, and
noticed though that people in finance, like they're skeptical that the AI, people don't trust that AI to write that number though. Like they're scared might make stuff up. Like, do you?
I mean, yeah, there's hallucination, and I've seen it very
Yeah.
closely, that hallucination happens.
Hmm.
I've been a victim of the hallucination as well too. I actually, when RAG was getting hot, right? I
Yeah.
actually did something within Snowflake where I was taking Fed press conference notes and trying to do a retrieval augment. But the thing is, I put two press conference notes, one from April 2024 and then one from May 2024. And the thing is, when you put two PDF documents and when you start querying the PDF documents, it pulls information from two documents and makes it as one thing. When in reality, like, the economic situation, it should have looked at the latest one. And I should have been more effective in my prompt writing, saying, based off the latest press conference notes, I just said, hey, what do you think of interest rates? Are interest rates going up and down? There were 2 different answers there. 2 different answers, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Wow, that made all the difference." I was like, "Oh my god," it's like, it can lie, it can blatantly lie, but, like, you gotta get the system set up too,
Right.
to make sure, and also give it citations. And this is where citations come in, all that stuff, right? So
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. Um, and then we're just having a discussion about the Karpathi's LLM knowledge graph and how RAG is
So,
dead.
yeah. So, anyways, I started going through, actually, it just happened right now. I have a friend who has a knowledge base about certain documentation, right? And he does a very good job of managing it and curating it and organizing it.
Right.
So, and lately I just read up on Andrej Karpathy's new way, like, he's trying to, so if you think about how like, what software is, right? This is just a bunch of code, and you use a compiler to
Right.
execute the code, and then you get an output, right?
Yeah.
Andrej Karpathy is using his new workflow is LLM Wiki is basically taking raw data in PDF, text, doc, Word doc, all that stuff, right? Using the LLM to compile or execute, right? And then generating the output and basically making a more robust knowledge system where there's intricate, yeah, obviously every document is interrelated to some degree, right? Like in your knowledge base, whatever in your working directory and all that stuff, right? So he's trying to, with the LLM wiki, he's trying to create this second brain for your knowledge base, where you can start putting in a 3D vector in space, like, hey, marketing and sales, there should be a knowledge graph associated with it, right? Like there is some interdependency between sales and marketing, right?
Right.
I'm just giving an example. And the way he set it up was very interesting, where basically he would two folders, and basically one is the raw folder, and the raw folder has all the raw files. Okay, PDF, Word doc, text, and all that, right? And then the next is the wiki folder, and another is the schema.md, which is kind of like a claude.md. It's your permanent memory system, right?
Hmm.
And you could basically get like a Copilot or a Claude or a GPT, whatever, right? To kind of go through the raw PDFs and generate like a claude.md full, markdown file for it, right? And it's
Right.
basically your permanent memory system. Hey, these are the files that are, like in this. This is how it's sorted. You know, one's associated with marketing, one's associated with sales, one's
Right.
associated with payments, so on and so forth, right? And then, in the wiki, you can start creating additional markdown files to help it create that symbiosis between all the different documents.
Right.
And it's kind if you ever get a chance, you should definitely check Obsidian. Obsidian is basically what Andrej Karpathy was thinking about. And it
Okay.
creates a second brain for your system. And then I was like, oh my God, if this can happen, just imagine. And it also helps you plug the holes. Like, hey, you don't have any relationship. There's a hole missing between, I don't know, payments and debits and credits. So certain things like that. And, just like, and maybe it might you can go into the web and pull additional documentation that could help you bridge that gap and make your
Mm.
knowledge base more robust. So
Right.
I think that's something cool, man. Like, oh my God, dude, this is changing at a very huge fast pace. So effectively, retrieval augmented generation, every time it's searching through numerous documents to get, the top two documents and extract out the information.
Right.
Whereas, what if the information was residing in several documents?
Yeah.
Nobody's answering that question, and this is where Andrej Karpathy was hoping to answer that question. So that's where LLM Wiki was coming in. It's like,
Okay.
what if the answers is in multiple documents, and you create that second brain to create that gap, bridge that gap.
Interesting. So let's say there's an existing organization, right? Like how can they apply this? Like just from first principles, like where do you start? Because it's like you have to start somewhere. So is there like a place with a boilerplate template, or is there like a
Yeah.
prompt that you'd start with? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a very good question. So first, you start off with. Let's see here. I'm just pulling this out right now. So okay, so yeah. So first, you get it to go through the raw document file, right? And here, I think you just put in. Okay, core. So okay, so your raw sources, your curated collection of source documents, articles, papers, image, data files. These are immutable. The LLM reads from them, but never modifies them. This is your source of truth. The wiki, a directory of LLM generated markdown files. It's summaries, entity pages, concept pages, comparisons, an overview, and a synthesis. The LLM owns this layer entirely. It creates pages, updates them when new source arrives, maintains cross references, and keeps everything consistent. You read it, the LLM writes it. And the schema, which is basically the Claude.md, Is basically that permanent memory structure, right? It tells how the LLM, how the wiki is structured, what the conventions are, and what workflows to follow when ingesting sources, answering questions, and maintaining the wiki. This is the key configuration file, and it's what makes the LLM disciplined and wiki maintainer rather than a generic chatbot. You and the LLM co-evolve this over time as you figure out what works for your domain. Yeah. Like the big thing is, yeah, just setting up your folder structure
Hmm.
and getting the LLM to generate the LLM wiki files, the
Okay.
architecture.md and all that stuff. So yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I think it's a tweet, right? So it makes sense to go back to that tweet that you're reading from,
Yeah,
and then take
definitely.
that.
Yes. Yeah, there's a under yes, exactly. There is a tweet by Carpathy about that. It happened about 4 weeks ago, about, like, early April. Carpathy. I'm actually looking through it right now, sorry.
No worries. Yeah. Yeah.
April 3rd, let's see here, April 4th, bullish. Yeah, so something I find very useful, using LLMs to build personal knowledge bases for various topics of research interest. In this way, a large fraction of my recent token throughput is going less into manipulating code and more into manipulating knowledge stored as markdown and images. So data ingest is the raw directory. Then I use a LLM incrementally compile a wiki, which is just a collection of markdown files in the directory structure. The wiki includes a summary of all data, backlinks, then it categorizes data into concepts, writes articles for them, links them all to convert into web articles into markdown files. I like to use Obsidian Web Clipper extension. Then I also use a hotkey to download all the related images. Then he uses Obsidian IDE front end where I can view the raw data and then the compiled wiki. But anyways, yeah, that's the basic gist of it.
Wow. Yeah, I think it's something that I wanna take a look at and see if I can even just apply it to my own like knowledge base because I collect so many articles, write so many
Yeah, oh my god.
notes.
Can
Yeah,
you
yeah,
imagine all the Medium articles that you've, like, saved and all that stuff and put it into that? Oh god.
that would be really cool. Yeah, I think I might. I like the Obsidian Clipper. I think I might just find that and see because you can like clip that to your Obsidian right away without having to like save the link and stuff. It's like one click, right? So you don't have to think about it.
Yeah, I think that's what I mean, this tool just got introduced, so I have to look through all my Medium articles and try to,
Yeah.
like, compile, like, put it all together, right? Like,
Yeah.
something because I have a notorious habit of just, like, saving all these files in some folder and stuff like that, and never thinking about it afterwards.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Just yeah, I'm just looking at the web clipper. I think I might install it.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Is there anything? So, okay, another question, right? That I have is like, do you feel like there's some stuff that's overhyped right now in AI? Like, just personally, like,
I think people are still going on the Claude bandwagon as much. Like, I still think you can get the job done with Cursor. Maybe I'm just a fool, but like I really think that Cursor is still a decent tool.
yeah,
Like talk about it back and forth. It's like, what am I missing out? But I've used Claude Code now. I think you can still generate skills in Cursor. You can do parallel agents. You could do all this stuff. So I don't know. Like, I think there's more hype around Claude Code, and there's a lot of pressure on Claude, right? So
right.
so I could see that, but there's also a lot of things I've gained because of utilizing Claude, and I wouldn't get where I am without them. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I like that. I think that they're all tools. I was talking to someone who is very experienced in the industry, and they told me that the goal of AI is to help the business or people get to the outcome, not the other way around. It's not the business does not have to use AI for everything. It's a tool that they can use to get to the outcome they want. And that's something I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Greg Eisenberg interviewed this one guy. He's a really good. If you ever get a chance, you should watch Greg Eisenberg. He's really good, and he really breaks down the nuts and bolts of things. It's like the evolution of what AI is right now, right? Like in 2023, 2022, 2023. you ask the LLM and it's a ping pong between you and the LLM and you do the work, right?
Yeah.
Now with agents and agentic workflow, agent, you give it a goal to achieve the result, right?
Yeah.
And you get the agent to do, what your goal is to achieve that quote result.
Hmm.
And that's where we're at right now. And like tools like N8N, we're already kind of leading the edge, leading it initially in the low code, no code phase. And
Yeah.
then, Claude is just, taking it, Claude, OpenClaw, all these kind of taking it to the next level, right?
Right. Right. Right.
Like, I helped a buddy of mine. Me and a buddy actually, this is my, just my way of just helping out friends. Like, I had a friend of mine who, we needed I wanted to help him out. So we did an N8N project together, and we just basically created an automated LinkedIn DM system where it generated a personalized message off of somebody's LinkedIn profile. Like, hey, I love your journey from coaching to trading. Would love to learn more, you know? And send these beautiful messages, and it worked. It is actually really cool to see that work. I helped a friend set up in Claude Cowork. Well, one generate like an email agent. Basically get chat to the chat interface to generate cold email system and
Hmm.
then get Cowork hooked up to his Gmail server and his Outlook, his calendar and all that to basically send like mass emails to people.
Okay.
So, in that way it's like, wow, this is really cool. It has the ability to send cold emails, respond back in kind to set up, appointments or whatever, right? Based off your calendar schedule. It was amazing. It was amazing.
That's really
It's
cool.
just like, yeah, so like the minimal things I've done with agents, I'm like, "Oh my god, this can go enterprise. This can do a lot of stuff."
Yeah, no, yeah, I think like Quark, for example, is the IDE for non-technical people, right? The way Cloud Code is for technical people. So there's very creative, like there's a lot of creative work going into like making this complex systems that run on IDs and terminals to come to people who, shouldn't be, using those primitive types of things that only engineers use, right? So I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
yeah, yeah. So I think yeah, it's really cool that it's good to hear from me how you're like bridging that, and there's so much opportunity to like do that.
I mean, I'm just like, the more I learn about what's happening with Claude is like the shining north star. And I'm also using other interfaces as well too. I'm using Copilot Studio. I'm using N8N. I'm using, like I'm also building stuff within Claude Code Cursor. So I'm not like, minimizing my touch to other tools. And I'm seeing how these other tools interface and I'm like, crap, this
Yeah,
is a way ahead of time. And like, oh my God, like this could happen. Like we should be thinking about building skills. Like who's talking about that? Like, it's only me going through Instagram and seeing, well, these guys are creating skills to do workflow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, wow. Okay. So if it comes to Copilot Studio, I got to create a skill for this.
nice. Yeah, I totally. I think that's one thing that people are discovering, like just piping skills together, and then just to like prevent AI from like burning a lot of tokens trying to figure something out, right? So it's like you got through a workflow and you're like, oh, create a skill for this so that you don't, just go through that discovery phase again and then burn
The
all those tokens.
Actually, you know what? You just made me think of something because I did identify one skill that I need to add and I need to create that a skill. So thank you for reminding me. I need to get Claude Code to like build out a skill for that. That's a very good point.
But yeah, I think we got toward the end of the podcast. Is there anything else, Ganesh, you want to add on? I think we
No,
had a.
man, I
r-
thank you for taking your time. I mean, this is 1 hour of your day, and thank you for taking the time to, like, interview me, and I look forward to watching this on LinkedIn and YouTube or wherever, man. So,
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Thank you everyone for watching. Till next time.
later, guys.